Division 19 President-elect Candidate Town Hall. My name is Eric Surface. I'm the current President-elect, and I'll be one of the moderators of this town hall. And I'll be joined by Tatana Olson, who's one of our members at large, who will also be moderating this. I'd like to, first of all, before we get into introductions from the candidates, thank the great students that we have at Division 19 for putting on this event and giving us an opportunity to hear what both candidates for President-elect have to say. And, you know, this is very important for us to have a voice in our elections, and this gives us an opportunity to make informed decisions about who we want as our president in the year 2021. And obviously, the way it works in our division is you get elected as the president-elect, you serve a year, then you serve a year as president, and you serve a year as past president. And so this is a position that's really important in terms of setting the future tone and vision for the organization and in terms of guiding our day-to-day services to our members. So we really appreciate you tuning in to this town hall and listening to what the candidates have to say. And Tatana, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, that covers it.
Great. Well, I'm gonna let the candidates introduce themselves because they know themselves better than anyone else. So we're gonna start with Vladimir. Vladimir, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning, and thanks for putting this together, Eric and Tatana. I've been a clinician, clinical psychologist for many more years than I really want to disclose, about 40 years or so. And I've been a member of the Division 19 for about the same time and a member of APA for about the same time. And I've attended about 33 out of 38 APA conferences. I was in active duty for 20 years, retired as a 05 as a commander in the Navy, and worked for DOD after that for another 18, 20 years as a civilian in different capacities, both from as a clinician, operational psychologist, and organizational psychologist, working lastly on policy with what eventually became part of DHA, the Defense Health Agency. And look forward to serving the community that I've been involved since literally day one in my career.
All right, thank you, Vladimir. Maurice?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Eric, Tatana, and Jordan for setting up this town hall meeting. Jordan, I know it's really early on your part of the world. So, like Vladimir, I think this is a great opportunity for us to share our thoughts with the division, and I really look forward to sharing my thoughts with you. I'm an Army research psychologist. I'm still on active duty. Now it's, I guess I was commissioned in 1990. And so I've served in a variety of positions from research to leadership positions throughout my career. And so I'll share some of that with you as the day goes on. But right now I'm the director of the Strategic Leadership course at the U.S. Army War College. And I think that's pretty much all I want to share at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. Well, let's jump right into the questions. And for those of you listening, how we're going to proceed is each candidate is going to get an opportunity to answer the same question, and they have a time limit of either 3 or 4 minutes, depending on the question, to answer it. And you'll see as on the slides, if you're actually watching a video of the session, that the question will be on the slides, and when they get to the 1 minute warning, that will be advanced, and then there'll be a slide that says time, and we'll move on to the next candidate or on to the next question. And so we did a coin toss prior to the start of this, and Maurice won the coin toss and elected to go second. So Vladimir, for our first question, goes to you. Why do you want to be president of Division 19?
Well, briefly, I'm a product of a generation that believed in ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And as I said in my introduction, I began my career as a psychologist in DOD as a military psychologist. In fact, my first assignment, residency training, was at Fort Ord, Monterey, and I said, this must be heaven, because that was wonderful. And then 20 years later, I continued working for DOD as a civilian for another 20 years. Now, I want to continue to serve the community where I started my career and give back to the military and military psychology. And I've been a member of Division 19 for about 40 years now. Being retired gives me ample time to devote to this endeavor. And that will be the end of my question one. So.
Great, thank you, Vladimir. Same question to you, Maurice. Why do you want to be president of Division 19?
Thank you, Eric. So, you know, Division 19 is my academic home, I think, in the APA. I've been a military psychologist all my life, and so I think it's a natural place for me to want to be. I've had the pleasure of working a lot more closely this year with the executive committee, and I know that the division's in excellent hands. And as I've become more involved in the division, I've taken on roles from some of my mentors. For example, Paul Partone and Bob Rowland were the International Committee co-chairs, and so now I'm serving in that capacity along with Dr. Kate McGraw. I've had the opportunity to co-champion the Strategic Objective 3 with Tom Britt, and I'm also co-chairing the new Society Leadership Program with Steve Bowles. And so my experiences over the past year have certainly reinforced my commitment to the division, and I want to serve our members in a role with increased responsibility. And to do that, I'd like to build on the strong foundations that our past presidents have established and the momentum that the Strategic Planning Working Group under Bruce Crow and Tatana Olson have built. You know, they've emphasized leader development, mentorship, engagement. Those are the things that I want to contribute to as well. I'd also like to focus on how the military environment and the practice of psychology in the military context continues to change, and how we as a division can be best positioned to execute our mission. We have to stay engaged. And I believe that my background and the diversity of my own experiences would allow me to serve the division well in that capacity. And so it would be an honor for me to serve our members as president. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. So as we discussed, we're going to switch back and forth about who gets the first opportunity to answer each question. So Maurice, this one is back to you. What are the knowledge, skills, and experiences that you bring to the position that would make you a successful president?
Thanks, Eric. So I bring a unique combination of experiences as an Army research psychologist to the division. You know, I've served as a bench scientist. I've led research organizations such as the Center for Military Psychiatry and Neuroscience at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. I've co-chaired research programs like the Medical Research and Material Command Psychological Health and Resilience Program. I've advised senior military leaders on health and well-being of their units, and I've done that in garrison and deployed environments. I've served as the Deputy Consultant for Research to the Army Surgeon General, and I've mentored and helped guide military psychologists as well as civilians as the Senior Research Psychologist in the Army. And so, as I mentioned before, I currently serve in the Department of Command Leadership and Management at the War College, and as the course director. And so, doing all of these things, I believe I've had the opportunity to work with civilian psychologists, military psychologists, researchers, academicians, clinicians, and consultants on a variety of topics ranging from medical, chemical defense to behavioral health and leadership. I think as a result, that's given me a pretty broad foundation in psychology and the appreciation for the contributions that multiple domains of our field have made. And so one of the things that I think has made me the most successful is my collaborative nature and my willingness to to include a diverse team to solve the types of problems that are of interest to our military. And so I've had the privilege of also helping train institutional leaders that will interact, that we will interact with us in the future. And so I think it's important for us to understand the changing context of the military environment in order for us to practice our craft effectively in a way that allows us to remain relevant to the Department of Defense. And more importantly, I think we have to be able to communicate our value and our relevance to the leaders who then influence the very context that we have to operate in. And I believe I can serve as that bridge for the division. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. So, Vladimir, same question to you. What are the knowledge, skills, and experiences that you bring to the position that would make you a successful president?
All right. As I mentioned earlier, I've been with the military as a military psychologist for 20 years. I served both in peacetime and wartime, so I've learned much about the organization as to what it is to be a military psychologist. I spent my first half of my career with the U.S. Army. Then I did an inter-service transfer and transferred to the Navy, and became very familiar with both entities, both services in terms of their operations, culture, and institutional effects. The similarity, ironically, is that as a clinician, whether I saw a patient at Walter Reed or I saw a patient at Bethesda Naval Hospital at the time, it really made no difference. Patients were the same, the issues were the same, and the needs were the same. So in that respect, from a clinical standpoint, it was not a big change. One of the skills that I have, and has served me very well over the years, is that I'm very adaptive, flexible, and also persistent. And lastly, I'm creative in problem solving. Having served in the military hospitals, both as a department head and chair, I learned how to be successful in working with multidisciplinary groups. And that came forth too, as well as later on in my career when I was involved with the Joint Chiefs of Staff office, as well as other entities within DoD, DHA as well. Having been a university professor and being board certified clinical psychologist by ABAB, I have a broad range of knowledge about psychology. I've taught courses from both introduction to psychology to clinical psychology theory and theory and practice. And lastly, I have extensive experience as a clinician, organizational, and operational psychologist. So I know the demands there, and I know the uniqueness there for each one of those entities. That's it.
Thank you, Vladimir. For those of you who are listening, we're now going to switch moderators, and I'm going to turn it over to Tatana. Tatana, all you.
All right. So for this question, Vladimir, you will be going first. What is your vision for Division 19 over the next 3 years?
Thank you, Tatana. In staying with the tradition of keeping it short and simple, we'll continue the same with question number 3. The first item I have on my on my list is to collaborate more with the with other APA divisions, like Division 2 for teaching, and 3 in experimental, and the cognitive Division 12, which is the clinical, and 13 consulting, as well as 14 and Division 29. I think that can help us work together with other divisions, in particular with similar issues. I also would like to see us do more collaboration with DHA, the Defense Health Agency. My last job within DoD was with the Defense Centers of Excellence, which now is pretty much disbanded and absorbed by various other sections within DHA. But I think that's an area that we can collaborate more with in terms of their ability to focus on their mission and for us to be able to express and extend our missions as well. Third, I would like to educate the psychology community in general about military psychology. My experience has been that not many people not know that there are military psychologists, let alone know what we do as military psychologists. The fact that we provide treatment to family members and service members seems to be sort of not on their radar. Collaborate with other professional organizations in producing joint conferences. For example, with I believe this year we're doing something with Division 29 at APA. That would be something that we can capitalize on and get more collaboration and joint efforts. Next, what I like to see is more collaboration with VA psychologists. That's a group of people that we need to work far more closely because the patient population they see are similar to the patient population that we see, as well as their needs are similar to our needs in terms of completing the mission. Lastly, I would like us to start collaborating with other military psychologists from other countries. We have become a very global entity in many ways, whether it be economic, political, or military, and we have similar needs and experiences that would be worthwhile to learn how do other countries address the issues that we in the U.S. address with regards to military psychology. Thank you.
Okay, Maurice, same question for you, please. What is your vision for Division 19 over the next 3 years?
Thanks, Tatana. So my vision for the division is for us to be recognized as the most professional psychological society that's capable of harnessing the diversity and expertise of psychologists in support of the military and of national security in a way that leverages our best practices, our research, our partnerships to address not only our current challenges but also our future military challenges. One of the things that I'm learning here as part of my job at the War College is that our future is changing and that our environment is changing and the character of war is changing. And so I think that presents new challenges for us as a whole. And so this will require us to, to continue to invest in the future of our society and to encourage our members to think outside of the box, innovatively about the influence of how technology is influencing us across all areas of psychology. I also believe that we need to explore opportunities to collaborate with other APA divisions to support each other. Many of our members are also members of other divisions, and so we need to, one, capture that information in a way that allows us to leverage those relationships to make us all more effective in applying psychological principles in a way that benefits society and improves people's lives. And so I believe that we're stronger together and that together we can confront the challenges that face all of our stakeholders. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice, and you will start out as the first respondent for question 4. Going into a little bit more detail, what are the top 3 initiatives you would like to accomplish during your tenure as president?
Okay, thanks, Tatana. So my presidential initiatives would continue to build on the great foundation that our past presidents have built for us. If elected, I'd like to continue to emphasize the work that has been invested in executing the Society Strategic Plan. The Strategic Plan Working Group and the Executive Committee have done a great job of laying out the strategic objectives for the division. So first, I'd like to continue to refine the work that's already being done under Strategic Objective 3, which, along with Tom Britt, I'm the champion for, and that's focused on developing the leadership potential of our members. And so this year we launched the inaugural class of the Society Leadership Program, and I'd like to incorporate the lessons learned and expand the faculty to provide participants an enhanced experience in the future. I think it's been a great learning experience for us as a leadership team, and I think the students are benefiting as well. So in addition, I'd like to create a mentorship infrastructure that facilitates mentorship within the division by, I don't know, creating a mentorship matching program, if you will, something that allows it, allows us to capture the skills and the expertise of our fellows and our members to pair up with student members and early career psychologists to facilitate the whole mentorship process. Second, I think we need to continue to develop and advocate for the policies and practices and ethical guidelines that support the role of military psychologists. I believe that if we're not part of the dialogue, then we stand a good chance of being marginalized by the conversation that's happening around us. And then finally, I'd like to enhance communication between APA divisions and our respective members to collaborate on critical topics facing the military. Again, as the character of the war continues to evolve. I believe this challenge can only be met by including the full breadth of our disciplines and by developing and mentoring future psychologists and encouraging them to apply their craft in innovative ways to support our service members and their families. So it's important for us to promote the values that we stand for as a profession and to ensure the division is recognized for all of our contributions to society and to the military. And finally, we need to develop leaders who not only can see the interconnections between the divisions, but also the relevance of the divisions and how to communicate that to others. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. Vladimir, same for you. What are the top 3 initiatives you would like to accomplish during your tenure as president?
Okay. Thanks, Tatana. All right, the 3 initiatives that I like to see accomplished is, one is to educate the psychology community at large about military psychology. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a sense that the community, the psychology community at large, has a good understanding of who we are and what we are about. Many don't even believe or even know that we exist, and some have negative perceptions about us. So that will, by being involved in the sort of a broad marketing and education program, to change the perceptions. Second, I would like to continue to counter the narrative that was portrayed by the Hoffman Report. That was a black mark for us as a community, and I think we need to get ahead of that report, and even 5 years later, we're still addressing and dealing with some of the fallout. So I'd like us to get ahead of that, and again, goes with my first comment, which was to educate the psychology community at large. And lastly, I'd like to see a far more involvement and expenditure in time and effort on mentoring psychology students interested in military psychology, and as well as to promote board certification. And those are my top 3 major ideas that I have that I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. You're also up first for this next question. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Division 19?
Okay. Basically have 2 things that I see as the biggest challenge. However, that doesn't mean they're 2 small items. They're very huge and very time-consuming. One of the things that I think is a challenge for us is, again, getting better control of the narrative created by the Hoffman Report. I think the Hoffman Report, to some extent, may have scared off a lot of good candidates for military psychology, as well as candidates, as well as members to join the Division 19, those who are in uniform. And second is to increase the membership by military psychologists. And by doing so, we increase their involvement with the division, and then that ripples into our our representation at the APA at large. So it's not a simple 1-2, but it's a very extensive, involved process. And as one of my colleagues years ago pointed out to me, was that it takes roughly 3 years of a concept from point of inception to delivery. So I can see where these, even 1 or 2 or 3 things, could literally take many more years to accomplish and to achieve success. Thank you. And at this rate, Eric, I think we might be able to get done by before 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. Maurice, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Division 19?
Thanks, Tatana. I think I agree with Vladimir on this question, at least in part. I think we've seen the membership in APA declining over the past few years, and we need to continue to communicate the member of being a value. Communicate the value of being a member of Division 19 clearly. I think this is really important when you think about the other organizations that compete for the same individuals. And many of our members may have limited funds and that forces a choice, right? So we want to be the division of choice for our members and for psychologists in general. So I think communicating the value of being connected to Division 19 and APA makes us stronger together. So there are so many competing platforms and information and narratives out there that it's becoming increasingly difficult for people to choose. And so I think we have to use our skills as psychologists to help people, sift through that information and make the right choices. Along with the change in technologies, I think that increases some of the social and ethical challenges that affect us, and in the military in particular. So we have to be able to effectively and efficiently communicate our goals, our ethics, and our value in a rapidly changing world. That's just it's just important for us to do that. And then finally, I believe that the changes in how journals are being published may present financial challenges to the division, since I believe journal subscriptions contribute a significant portion to our revenue. And so staying financially sound and sustainable is critical. And so we may have to think about other means to gain and sustain resources to help support our members and our stakeholders in the future. So it's a combination then of maintaining membership and then sustaining our organization financially to help support our members and stakeholders. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. We'll start with you for this next question. How can Division 19 best advocate for research, practice, and policy that support veterans, military members, and their families?
Okay, so this, Division 19 can best advocate for research, practice, and policy to support our veterans, family members, and military members by engaging the public. And so one of the things that Dr. Bowles is working on this year is promoting military psychology. And I think he plans to establish these mini think tank pods in order to identify education policy areas where we can advocate on behalf of military psychology. And I think this type of approach is important because we need to understand how changing dynamics will affect our stakeholders. So we need to know who our subject matter experts are on a variety of topics in order for us to respond quickly and accurately on behalf of our stakeholders, our veterans, our military members, and their families. And so I believe we should, leverage opportunities such as this in order to proactively engage and educate the public. There are also other innovative ways that I think we can engage the public, and our membership holds the key to those innovations. For example, during the mid-year meeting, I believe it was Neil Shortland that mentioned the idea of creating a podcast that we could use as a means to share our mission, our visions, and values to the public, with the public. So I think there are ways that we can leverage innovative ideas from our members at large to influence and engage the public to advocate for our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice. Vladimir, how can Division 19 best advocate for research, practice, and policy that support veterans, military members, and their families?
Okay. Again, in global sense, what I see us doing to address all of these categories is greater collaboration with the VA, other federal agencies, DHA, the Defense Health Agency, and lastly, to begin to collaborate more with academia, both whether it be on the research side or on the practice side. And second is to establish working groups with some of these entities to address research issues, to address policy, to drive the research and drive also clinical practice. I think such work groups, not necessarily to meet on a monthly basis, but or a weekly basis, but to meet regularly enough, quarterly perhaps, to collaborate and brainstorm different ideas and then publish things and influence policy at various levels. I think that would be our biggest buck for accomplishing some of these Division 19 issues. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. We're now going to switch facilitators over to Eric.
Thanks, Tatana. So, Vladimir, this question is back to you, and I know you mentioned this earlier in your comments. What steps do you think are needed to go beyond the Hoffman Report, and what are the remaining barriers to achieving that goal?
Thank you, Eric. Here I got a more extensive response for us. But first, as I was reading the question in a flashback, I was there at APA when it all blew up in our face. Aside from what their task was, there also appears to have been a collusion against military psychology by the psychology community at large. There was much misinformation and false information distributed. Much of it was addressed or has been addressed by several psychologists and the APA. But it's hard to put the toothpaste back in once it's out. We need to rebuild trust with our own community, military psychology community, and repair the bridge with APA and the psychology community at large. That's said simpler and easy to write on paper, but it's going to be an enormous task for us to begin to address. In concert with the APA, we also need to change the narrative and educate the public about military psychology, and specifically psychology in the national security arena. Lastly, I believe we need to engage in organizational/divisional healing, if you will, both organizational in terms of APA as well as within our own division, healing and facilitate our greater mission as a division and that of military psychology. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to you, Maurice. What steps do you think are needed to go beyond the Hoffman Report? And what are the remaining barriers to achieving that goal?
Thanks, Eric. I think Vladimir and I are very much see this issue in the same way. I agree with him that we need to reestablish trust between APA and Division 19. I believe we stand for the same values and share a common vision. But I think in particular we need to champion the use of psychology to promote human rights, human well-being, health and dignity, regardless of where that is practiced. The Hoffman Report violated trust, and it allowed political interests to detract from the goal of using rigorous and sound scientific principles, particularly when informing policymakers and the public on issues as important as ethical behavior in our profession. And so I think the APA should work collaboratively with Division 19 leadership to revise the APA Code of Ethics to be based on behavior and not setting, location, or employer. And we need to actively engage in outreach efforts with the general population of the APA to promote their understanding of the military context. I think it's a lack of understanding in the military context that allows some of this to happen. And this is evidenced by the huge divide in terms of the number of people who have been in the military and those who have not. I think it's less than 1% of the American population currently has served in the military. Granted, we can expand that out and include civilians that have supported the Department of Defense as well. But nevertheless, there's a gap that we have to bridge. And so, I think by focusing on our values of why we're all members to begin with, again, like Vladimir said, getting back to our core and understanding our values and initiating that healing allows us to, focus on the application of science to better society, and that's important, right? So mutual trust will allow us as Division 19 members to provide the guidance, the insight, and support that I believe the APA leadership needs to serve on committees and task forces on issues that are relevant and important to military psychology. So in summary, I think we have to continue to move forward to regain that lost ground as it applies to the Hoffman Report, and I think we have to encourage the Code of Ethics to be based on behavior and not setting, location, or employer. So ultimately, rebuilding mutual trust that will allow us to provide the guidance, insight, and support to the APA leadership committees and task forces on issues that are important to military psychology.
Thank you, Maurice. So, Maurice, the next question, you'll get the start. What do you see as Division 19's role within the larger APA?
Thanks, Eric. So I believe that as an original charter division of the APA, that Division 19 plays a foundational role within the larger APA. The division plays a critical role in advocating for the advancement of military psychology, particularly in that national security context. And so we should serve as the subject matter experts who are sought out to share our expertise and our knowledge as it relates to the science and practice of psychology in the military context. So part of our role then within the larger APA is to educate APA membership at large regarding the importance of military psychology. And we also play an important role in looking at the changing character of war and how it may influence the science and practice of psychology. So I think we should play an active role in understanding how legislation such as the National Defense Authorization Act will impact the practice of psychology in the military context. And that's what Vladimir was alluding to when he was talking about the Defense Health Agency and the changes in the organization and structure of military medicine and how that as a whole will impact our practice. The other thing I think we need to focus on is how the national shortage in behavioral health providers could also have potentially impact the readiness of the military as a whole. And so again, this is where I think Vladimir and I see things very similarly. How do we engage practitioners to want to be a part of what we do in the context of the military? I think it's important, particularly as it applies to national defense. So I think, understanding how things like the Defense Health Agency and its reorganization could impact recruitment and retention of providers serving the military community is paramount for us. So keeping vigilant in terms of not just APA commentary and Hoffman reports and those sorts of things, but also the broader environment and how that could impact us at large. Thanks.
Thank you, Maurice. Okay, Vladimir, the same question to you. What do you see as Division 19's role within the larger APA?
Okay, very similar to some issues that Maurice was identifying. My focus here is really more on the larger APA rather than psychology at large. Again, I think, as Maurice pointed out and as I have pointed out, we really need to engage more in promoting military psychology. I think there's a misconception, misunderstanding of who we are, and what we do, starting with the APA and then across the board. We need to also engage, as was suggested by Maurice, with APA in discussions that affect military psychology. Again, it goes back, having a seat at the table, it really is helpful, and that comes with people being members of APA and being familiar with military psychology and voting for number of seats at APA. So, and once we have representation and involvement, we need to really have more discussions with APA with regards to who we are and what we do. And lastly, I think we need to promote APA in general, not to be antagonistic toward APA, but to promote APA to the general public. As military psychologists, we're part of the APA in that sense. And then to promote APA to the general public and the psychology community at large, because there are many other psychologists out there who are not members of APA, and I think we need to encourage psychologists to join the professional group, as well as to join military psychology. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. All right, we've reached the point in our conversation with our two candidates where we're going to give them a few minutes to make their final comments and maybe answer the questions that they wish we had asked them. So, Vladimir, this one is back to you. Are there any final comments you would like to make?
Certainly. First and foremost, thank you. As well as thank you to Division 19 for putting this together. And as I was listening to our discussion, for members voting, my sense is that both Maurice and I have similar views on some of the issues, so the sense that regardless of who wins, I think will be well presented at Division 19. So I found that as a solace in the sense that I agree with Maurice in terms of some of the ideas and views presented, so I feel comfortable with that. And if elected, I will serve honorably. I believe that trust and commitment are two ingredients most germane to any relationship. Trust, which includes respect, whereas respect does not necessarily include trust, requires that we be honest, be accountable for our actions, and to do the right thing. Commitment refers to the process that we would engage and accomplish what is expected, would not abandon our responsibilities, and would not be abusive. These two ingredients, trust and commitment, are essential for any relationship, be it between a parent and a child, co-workers, supervisor and supervisee, officers and enlisted servicemen, or teacher and student. Failure of either ingredient to solidify will produce failed relationship. As to my portion of the equation, trust and commitment translate to being respectful of each member and his or her divergent views, present material to the division that division members understand the concept, and promote personal growth and execute execute my duties as expected. I believe in mentoring. As a mentor, my obligations are to contribute to the full potential of a new generation, which will take us to the next level of our evolution, while experiencing peak experiences on the way. Every generation of members has its logbook of challenges. The challenges for this century's members are influenced by the fast-paced technology and how to integrate that into practice. My conviction is that we not only explain the assigned material, but expand it and mentor members on how that knowledge can transcend into other areas. By doing so, we enrich their lives and by extension, ours as well. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate and look forward to the results and as well, if elected, to serve, and as I said, to serve honorably.
Thank you, Vladimir. So Maurice, the same question to you. Are there any final comments you'd like to make?
Yes, thank you, Eric. So like Vladimir, I really appreciate the time that you all gave us today to speak with you and also with the division audience that may watch this town hall. I also agree that we have very similar thoughts and opinions about things, and I also would welcome the opportunity to represent the society. And I believe that I have the background and leadership skills required to promote the values, the core principles, and the ethics that we stand for as a society. We're a society dedicated to applying research and psychological principles to solve military problems, and that's something that I believe I have done throughout my career. So if elected, I'll focus on three major initiatives that are centered on expanding leadership development, mentorship, and professional development opportunities, advocating for our core principles, values, and in communicating and engaging with other APA divisions. And I strongly believe that it's through collaboration that we can continue to expand our network of professionals who are dedicated to improving the lives and well-being of our service members that are stationed around the world, our veterans and their families. So I really believe that it's together that we need to use our diversity to help our colleagues in the larger community understand the military context and the unique challenges that the military environment presents. And so we need to communicate our goals, our ethics, and our values to our members and society effectively and efficiently in the rapidly changing world that Vladimir and I both described. People have choices, and we have to make the value of our society clear. So once again, I thank you for the chance to represent you and champion the values that we stand for as a profession to ensure that the division is recognized for our contributions to society and to the military. And I'd like to close on the thought that I guess it doesn't really matter who wins. We've got strong leadership, and I believe that we have common elements of that I would be honored to serve in the capacity. But ultimately, I encourage everybody to go out and vote because we need to make sure that people's voices are heard. So thank you, Eric, Tatana, and Jordan for hosting this, and Vladimir for having this dialogue with you. Thanks.
Well, thank you to both of the candidates, Vladimir and Maurice. We appreciate you joining us and sharing your thoughts. It's very important to engage in the process and to provide our members with an idea of who you are and what you stand for and what you look to accomplish in the role of President-elect, President, and past President. I also want to thank Jordan and the Student Affairs Committee. They do an amazing job of organizing our entire web presence in terms of courses and seminars and the town hall and so many other things that they do for us. The division is very, very proud of our Student Affairs Committee and all of the students who are involved and volunteer, and that's a really important thing to be engaged, and we definitely appreciate that, so thank you to you. Also want to thank my colleagues on the election committee because, you know, I can't do this by myself, so Tatana and Paul Bartone and Bruce Crow, we're the election committee for this year, and I thank all of you for your support in making this happen. And finally, I want to thank everyone who's listening and has made it to this point of our town hall, because you've made it all the way through. And anybody who knows anything about podcasts is most people drop off in the first 10 minutes. So the idea is if you've made it through here, you've done a great job and you're very engaged, and we appreciate that. One of the things that we want you to do now is go out and vote. And voting opens on the 15th of April and closes on the 29th of May. APA runs our elections, and they send you ballots either in the mail or via email. But to do that, you have to have your dues paid, and you have to have your current email and address updated. So if you do not receive an email on April 15th and you believe you should receive an email asking for you to vote, please contact APA, and if you don't know who to contact at APA, please contact a member of the election committee, and we can help you get in touch with that person. The next thing I really want to kind of do is just say good luck to both of you. I think you've given us, both Vladimir and Maurice, you've given us great things to think about, and I would be very happy to have you both on the XCOM. But you know, so in the future, I look forward to working with one of you on the XCOM, and hopefully the other one will stay involved in the division and continue to work to support the cause of military psychology. Thank you, everyone, and make sure you vote and encourage your friends to vote. Thanks. Can we cut it, Jordan?